Hello, everyone. Welcome into another episode of the East Alabama Works video podcast series. I'm Carl Brady with East Alabama Works. And as you know, East Alabama Works is Region 2's Workforce Development Council. And we cover 7 counties in East Alabama, constantly working with our local business and industries to find out what their workforce needs are and to then convey those needs to the public, to elected officials, to anybody who will listen, basically, to let the public know what kind of needs there are in the workforce and what kind of training they need to get, what kind of education they need to get, those kind of things. And we really love to work with training providers and people who are providing workforce training. And one of those is called Workforce Connections. It is with the United Way of East Central Alabama. They are funded through the Workforce Innovations and Opportunity Act that we help to administer. And I have Sonny Cotton with me today from Workforce Connections. Sonny, welcome into the episode.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Carl.
Well, we want to know more about Workforce Connections, how you guys got started, and even if you want to talk about the grant process a little bit, maybe somebody out there is looking to apply for one of the WIOA grants and they don't know anything about the process. So let's just start there. You heard about the grants. You guys at the United Way had this idea in mind and you decided to pursue it, and just kind of start me off with that part.
Yeah, well, Carl, I'm going to be right up front with you. I was not part of that process. I actually came in a little bit later. So I might not be the best person to give insight to that kind of thing. But what I can give you insight with is telling you a little bit about, how we have developed and structured our program. I really feel like it's one of a kind. So I actually began, it was September 2020, and we got our contract in March of 2020. Great timing to start a brand new program, right?
Exactly.
That was when the world shut down and everybody kind of like went into another land that we all never had lived in before. I actually came in September 2020. I was a little bit nervous, starting, not much had been done with Workforce Connections because of the pandemic. And, by September, people were just kind of starting to embrace this new life that we were having to be part of. And I was a bit nervous coming into it, but it has just been absolutely it's been a grand adventure. It truly has. It's been challenging, but very, very good. So I was really part of, coming up with the program, really. I mean, there was some structure there, but, okay, how is it going to work? What does this really look like? What does a Monday look like at Workforce Connections?
Right.
So it was challenging, but it's also one of my favorite things to do, is to, build processes and brainstorm and come up with some wild ideas and implement those. And I had the freedom to do that here. And I think that with, even though we hadn't really started the program when I got here and started to lead the program, I think that was a huge advantage for me because I was able to really implement those wild ideas and problem solve. And, I was up for the challenge. And because of that, I believe we have a great program. I know we do. It's one I'm very, very, very proud of. And it's one I'm very passionate about. So yes, I can't answer too many questions about the whole grant process, but I can say that we have a really awesome program here. I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, we'll start there then, just talking about the program and those kind of things and the ideas you guys have had and how you have implemented those. So you got the funding provided through the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act grant process. The United Way secured that funding. They bring you in and you start developing the program. Who are you serving and what are you doing for them?
Yes, that's a great question. So we serve 16 to 24-year-olds that are in or out of school. So we serve students that are really trying to find their next right step. So whatever that looks like. We are a holistic program. We are here at United Way, so we have access to unlimited resources. And then, of course, through our funding through WIOA, we've got those incredible resources that help our students actually implement the next step that they need. So we have, United Way in the background providing the resources like for any kind of basic need that they might need to, kind of stabilize themselves. And then we have our awesome WIOA funds that help us propel them into the workforce and help them actually take action into what their next step is. So with that, we serve 16 to 24-year-olds in and out of school youth. And we primarily focus on our high school seniors just because it's such a beautiful marriage between, they're looking for their next step actively, they need a little bit of structure, and then we kind of step in and help provide that for them. And like, hey, we want to walk alongside you in this year. I do have participants, and I've served participants that are in their early 20s. One just got his GED. So we help support them if they maybe they didn't graduate high school. We actually have an awesome partnership with Gadsden State and their adult ed program. So, they'll get their high school diploma and we support them through that. So it can look different for everybody. They do have to have certain life experiences to be eligible for our program. It is WIOA. So, there are some eligibility requirements. But they're really they're not that scary. If you want to come into workforce connections, let's make it happen. So if they're in school youth, they do have to be considered low income. But we figured out, if they have free reduced lunch, they're low income. If they receive SNAP benefits, TAMP benefits, they're low income. And then they've got to have an additional life experience, which is really a barrier. I use the word life experience. I feel like it's a little more positive and uplifting for our students. But that could mean that it's basically anything that can stop them from moving forward in life. It's a barrier. That can be many different things. I mean, it can be ADHD. If they've got an IEP at their school, there you go. We don't even have to know the details of that unless they decide to open up and tell us themselves. But it can mean they can even have scoliosis. I mean, really, it could be anything that could potentially hold them back from moving forward. And so with our out of school youth, they just need one life experience, one barrier. They don't have to be low income. So they could have just been diagnosed with anxiety, and that is a qualifier right there. So one thing that I love about that is, some people could look at that and say, wow, that, kind of would probably limit them in terms of like the participants that they have. But actually it's quite the opposite, because what I love to do is go in and talk with participants when I'm talking with them about the program. And I'm like, the things that have disqualified you, that you have felt have disqualified you in the past, actually qualify you for this program. And the beauty of this program is we are going to help you find what your next step is. So whether that's entering the workforce or whether that is going into post-secondary education or enlisting in the military, whatever that looks like. But the outcome of Workforce Connections is a plan, a solid plan and structure that they're able to embark on with confidence that they've gained within our program. Not just the confidence they've gained, but we also do so much with employability skills, and we develop their soft skills. I just love it. I mean, it is, it really is a joy. It is a very challenging, it is for at-risk youth. It's just to be very blunt, this is a program for at-risk youth. But, at-risk could mean there are many different levels to at-risk. And I tell our students all the time, I would be considered for this program. When I was your age, I would have been able to be part of this program. And there's no way that I would do what I do now without experiencing a lot of those life circumstances, because I would never lead a group of people when I've never been in those places. So I just identify with them on so many levels, and it's just it's something very special to be part of. It is challenging, but you know what, we're up for the challenge, and there's so many rewards that come with this program, not just for our participants, because of course that's what it's about, but I just get to be part of that. And it's truly just an honor, really. And so, yeah, we do a whole lot with our participants. I'm telling you, forever. So you just, you keep stopping me and guiding me on and on about Workforce Connections here at United Way.
Well, we've got plenty that we can talk about. The ultimate goal of Workforce Connections is long-term employment, and whether that means getting them into an education program that eventually provides them with the opportunity for long-term employment, or if it's just getting that GED, getting a few essential workforce skills, and get those under their belt, and then helping get them placed into a job immediately. That's the ultimate goal, is developing workforce and catching some of these kids that may be falling through the cracks and getting them the opportunity, getting them the confidence and the means to get out there and have a good job, a good career that ultimately allows them to support their family or support a family and enjoy their lives.
Yes, that's exactly what we do, Carl. You are on point. I mean, to take everything that I just said in a jumble of words and to put it in that beautiful summary. But yeah, we really do want to meet our students where they are, so wherever they're at in life, we want to meet them in that place, but then we want to call them up to a higher standard, that they are capable of so much more than what they have ever, imagined or even what they've been told. We want to develop them as young adults so they can be self-sufficient. Like you said, they can support their families so they can contribute to the workforce in a positive way. We want our students, when they leave this program, to go into whatever that next step is, being really developed more as just into a better person. I mean, and I tell them this all the time, I have to constantly think, how can I grow today? How can I become better? We all come from different backgrounds, and some of us very unfair circumstances, but that does not mean that we cannot overcome them and contribute to our society in a very positive and inspiring way. We can, go out into the workforce and be the best employee we can be, even on a day where we don't feel that great. We do this through multiple avenues, so the way that we do workforce is we have cohorts. So right now we're in our spring cohort, and we have classes. So we do our classes, and then we also have our mentoring sessions. And in these mentoring sessions, it's where we meet these students where they are, and we develop an ISS for them, which is individualized service strategy plan. And we develop a plan directly, strategically for that student and alongside that student to be sure that they are on a path that works for them, but they're also being held accountable. They have goals they have got to meet, and they're being encouraged, advocated, supported along the way. So we develop a plan for them, and eventually, we kind of start with we start with the end in the beginning. So I'm like, what do you want out of workforce? Let's talk about it. What's the outcome here? When this is all said and done, what do you want your life to look like? And we kind of talk through that. They have to develop a personal statement for us. And we use Google Classroom for all of this so we can keep it real structured and nice. And so they'll develop their personal statement, and I print that off, and I go through and I highlight everything that could turn into a goal, and I highlight that this is the outcome that they want. And then we integrate that into their plan, because a lot of times the students will come in and I'm like, you can't just be like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like, I don't know. And are like, okay, well, what's a goal that you want to do? These are things that these students have really, if they have fallen through the cracks, which most of the time with the students that we serve, unfortunately, that's the case. No one has ever looked at them and said, Johnny, tell me your dreams. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about those. They don't know how to dream. No one's ever taught them how to dream. No one's ever encouraged them to dream. And, so you can't, if they don't even have like this dream, then how can you ask them to even, come up with the next step for their life? I mean, they're just completely lost and frustrated and overwhelmed and discouraged. And so if you kind of come in and say, hey, this is what you said you wanted, we gave you some prompts, what you said, here's some goals we came up with based on what you told us. And we developed that strategy. They don't realize it, but we've really developed a strategy based on what they've already told us. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of come back and say, hey, did you realize you came up with this plan? You know that? You're so much more capable than you realized. And they're like, I took this from what you told me. And they're like, oh, I can. I do know some things that I want. And then we just start to help build that confidence from there. And in these classes, we break it down into 3 steps because, life is done step by step, right? And so we like that within our curriculum. And so I've developed this curriculum where it's step 1, 2, and 3. The first step, they are going to discover their design. What a gift. I tell them this all the time. What a gift that you have to learn about yourself. We have, there are people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, people that, on their deathbed. No, they never took the time. No one ever gave them the time or the an option of actually looking into who you are, how you're designed, how you're wired, your unique gifting. That I'm like, this is a gift. Take advantage of it. I'm not doing this just to do this with you. I want you to discover these ultimate, and these gifts that you have that not everybody has. Gifts were given to us so we can give them away. And we want you to do that in your job. We want you to have these gifts or know that you have these gifts. We want you to know how to use them in a positive way. And we want you to go into a career where you're going to get to use them almost every single day, because you're gonna want to stay in that job. We need retention, okay? These
right.
In this society, it's like, hey, this job is just not for me. Bye-bye. See you later. No 2 weeks notice, nothing. So we have strategy behind all that we do, but really we have their interest in mind in terms of, we want you to find your gifts because we want you to stay into a job that's going to help our local economy. That's going to help you as a person. You're going to be better. You're going to be happier, husband or wife and mom and dad. And your family's going to be stable, and you're going to go in and contribute to society better than you ever thought you could. So there's so much depth to everything that we do with that. And so we use the DISC extended assessment. We look, it's a very in-depth overview, and it's a work-based environment personality assessment. We can really dive in and help them develop with that. And we also do a lot of career exploration. And the funniest thing, Carl, is when I'll sit down with these students and I'll say, okay, well, let's talk about it. What are you thinking you want to do? And they'll say, oh, I want to be, I want to be a nurse. Okay, it's great. Tell me why you want to be a nurse. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. One time somebody said that I should be one, and I was like, yeah, that'd be good. That'd be cool. And then I just thought I'd be a nurse. And so, we want them to start thinking for themselves. We talk a lot about, taking ownership of your thinking. Your mom or dad, or, they may have thought for you your whole life, and now it's time for you to start thinking for yourself. And so we talk a lot about problem solving. Yes, this is part of your life, but let's talk about how we can get around it. It might take you 10 more steps than it took your friend that took 3 steps, but you're still going to get to where you're going. That's what the point is, right? So we also develop their skills. The interview skills that we do. I love a good interview. So we work on our interview skills. We develop their resumes. Throughout WorkFORCE, they're doing job shadows that we set up for them based on what they've told us they're interested in. And so a lot of them don't have any kind of work experience, and they think, oh, Miss Sunny, you'll never be able to come up with a resume. Oh, yes, we will. We will, because we're going to work on that throughout WorkFORCE Connections. And these classes, you're going to be learning skills, and then you're going to be learning when you go out in the community and you job shadow, and you're going to volunteer. They have to do 2 job shadows, and they have to do 1 volunteer assignment. And we want to find a volunteer assignment that they feel that they're connected to in a purposeful way. That way that they can continue to plug into that and forever be part of that charity or whatever that might be for them. And so along the way, they're actually, developing their resume. We learn.
Well, let's talk about some of those skills here for just a second. When we talk about job readiness skills, leadership skills, and things like that, we on the workforce development end, we're always hearing from our companies that they need somebody who will show up on time. They need people who will actually stay on the job, show up every day, on time every day. People who will stay off their phone and focus on their jobs. People who can pass a drug test. People who can get along with others. And some of those basic things that many of us think of as just basic skills. So talk about that skills training. What are those things like that you are trying to instill in these students?
Yes. Okay. So that's a great question. With WorkFORCE Connections, when I talk with them, I want them to know this is like a job. This is WorkFORCE Connections is your job, because this is a safe space for you to learn and make some mistakes. But when you get out into the real world, it will not always be grace given, and it's the real workforce. This is what you're expected to do. And so we emulate that experience here at WorkFORCE Connections. They have to clock in, they have to clock out, they have a name tag they have to bring, they have to wear that to class, they have to wear that for any job shadow volunteer. And I find out if they don't, because there's a feedback form that they'll let me know if they didn't show up with those items. But they do have to wear that name tag with, anything related, and they've got to make sure that they remember it. And on the back of it, they flip it over, and there's a little QR code they scan on our iPad that we use, and they clock in, they clock out. They've got to be on time. They've got to make sure they remember to clock out. I tell them all the time, there are some places where if you've, clocked in 1 minute late, you're getting a point, and you only get so many points before you're gone. So I'm telling you, and we're doing this because this is a safe environment. If you forget to clock in or you forget to clock out one day here, lesson learned, let's talk about it, but out in the real world, it's gonna be a different story. So they have to, when they've got, let's say, time off, when they're not gonna make class, they've got to go fill out a time off form. They've got to, like they would if they were going to miss work. Tell me why.
Right.
We talk a lot about communication. You need to communicate with me, just as you would communicate with a boss. If something is going on and you're going to be missing work, you need to talk with them about that. And do exactly as they ask in the protocol that they enforce with that. We also have developed. We create new email addresses. This is their work email address. You need to check your work email. Yes, you have your personal email, but you got to remember to check your work email. And I had a conversation with them yesterday. Are y'all checking your work email? I don't think so. I don't think you are. I need you to communicate with me on there. I need to see that you're on there checking your email. So, I tell them you might have a work email, and you're going to have to remember to keep looking at that. Even if you don't use it, there might be some important announcements they send out through there. We also, if this incentivized, this program, it's not just free, Carl. This program, it's incentivized. They are paid money to be in Workforce Connections. Okay?
Wow.
It's awesome. But they have to, with certain certifications that they earn along the way, job shadows, they're paid. So when they graduate high school, they get $200. I mean, really, if I would have loved that. But I do say, okay, listen up. We document everything. Okay. So if you are not doing what we ask you to do, you're not on time, you forgot to clock in, 3 times in a row, whatever, your phone's out when we're talking, when you're at work, in class, mentoring session, whatever, we're documenting it. When we see a trend, guess what? The next incentive you have coming up, you're not getting it. And I've enforced that before, because you don't do your job, you don't get paid, period.
That's right.
And I tell them, I had a job before where if I forgot to clock in or clock out, or if, I missed work one day, even if it was excused, there was a bonus check that you would get at the end of the month if you met all your goals. And if you didn't do one of those things or whatever, guess what? You don't get the bonus check. And so, we try to emulate this experience for them right up front. So this is a grace-filled learning experience, but also as we go along, they're held to a higher standard. Okay, you've been doing this for 3 months. There's no excuse. You're about to go into the real world. I would be doing you an injustice if I continue to say, oh yeah, you're learning. No. You have learned and you need to show me. So those are just a few ways that we do that. In interview skills, they've got to show me they're applying what they've learned. We have mock interviews off site. They're going to be in front of people they've never seen before. And there's going to be a panel. I mean, we go full out, and I'm telling you what, I make them go in and tell me where they're applying. They have to research their mission, their values. They've got to, and they're going to be questioned about that. And they come back for feedback with me, and we're going to do them we're going to do those interviews until they get it right. And so, dressing appropriately. In the beginning, I don't enforce that so much. You don't know exactly what you're working with right off the bat.
Right.
It takes some time for our students to open up and feel that they can trust you. They've had bad experiences with the HR, anything that they can connect to something negative. I have to be very, very careful. So, it might be they don't have the clothes, but guess what? The beauty of that is our program will provide them interview clothes if they need it. We will buy them clothes. I went with a couple of young ladies last year and got them, they did not. I noticed they're wearing the same thing about, on rotation, and I could not enforce that with them if they don't have the clothing for that. So I do have to give that some time and be very patient, kind of get a feel for it. We have a student, he's on his own. He cannot afford steel-toed boots. He wants to be a welder, and he's going to be going into some job shadows where I know that it'll be good if he had those steel-toed boots. He can't quite do the work, but I want him to feel what it's like to actually be part of that, organization. We're going to buy him steel-toed boots next week. How much fun is that? So we just want to be sure that they're prepared in every single way, and eliminate any barrier that we can, to be sure that they know what it's like to be a good employee and to be a good person in general.
Absolutely. It sounds like you guys are doing a great job with that, and addressing those barriers. That's where the United Way comes in, and the multiple partners that the United Way has throughout the community. There's always somebody you can call that can help you with some of those barriers, like the steel-toed boots or clothing or other issues. Sometimes we hear a lot about transportation being an issue, and you guys are addressing those issues as well as providing the training and the learning. So that sounds like you guys are on a great track there.
And we, like you brought up transportation, I'm hesitant to enroll a student that does not have transportation, because I tell them, if I can't, I've got to think about this. If you're in this program, the outcome, you've got to be able to get to your next step. We're going to set it up. We're going to structure it out for you. We're going to develop this. But if you can't get to that next step, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So listen, if you want to do this, let's do it. We're going to enroll you, but here's what I need from you. We're going to get your learner's permit. We're going to get your driver's license. Oh, nobody will take you to get your driver's license. Guess what? I will. I'm going next Saturday, bright and early. And I'm, getting in that passenger seat a little bit scared, my learner's permit and the driver's seat, and she's going to go get her driver's license, because even if they don't have a vehicle quite yet, if they can start building that confidence and knowing, hey, I can get my driver's license, then they're going to be able to start building that confidence to initiate a plan to get that car. And that's actually what just happened with one of my girls. She didn't know how she's going to get a car, but now she's getting comfortable driving, and she's like getting motivated, and she's I'm like, let's develop a plan to get this car. You're ready. And so, we do try to address all of those issues, and it looks different for everybody. But yeah, it's a fun thing to be part of. We talk a lot about time management. I had a student yesterday, he couldn't make it. And I said, we need to talk about your time management skills. You're not done with what you're working on because you had poor time management, but we're going to talk about it. Don't worry, and they're like, yes, ma'am, and in the beginning, I'm really nice and patient and don't try to freak them out. But as we move along, you know what? They need to be held accountable, and they know that we have their best interest at heart. They know that we want the best for them. And now they're trusting that. We're actually at that point now. Thank God. They're starting to finally hook on and trust the process. And I can start, let's do this kind of thing. And I'm feeling alleviated a little bit, honestly, from that. So, yeah.
How long is each cohort with you? How long is the program?
Yeah. So we actually this year, because of the pandemic, I've had to constantly reevaluate and rework the program, because schools, we are in a lot of the schools. I go actually and teach in the schools, and then we have a class here too, but I've had to reevaluate it, and I think we might have it all down now. So we start in January for the spring cohort, and we're going to be graduating them out the week before high school graduation, so May 18th. So we started, it's about 15 weeks. We have a spring break. Everybody needs a little break. It's fine. I need one. But we will, they'll be doing that through May. And then they go into phase 2. So once they graduate, we have a graduation. We haven't talked a lot about this yet, but they have to speak. They have to get up and speak, which we'll cover public speaking. But they do their graduation speech and everything. And once they graduate from us, phase 2 starts. This is where we really just are there for continued support throughout for a year. So they can still earn incentive money. If they are in post-secondary and they're getting, grades, they have to submit their grades to me every, at the end of semester. If they've got a 2.5 GPA or higher, they get an incentive check for that. If they're employed and they're continuing to be successful and be good employees, we check in and they get some more incentive dollars for that as well. And we're just there for continued support. I had one student, he started working at Tyler Union, and what was so great about this is he was making so much money. He did not know what to do with this money. And so he came back and we worked on another budget. So we make sure they have a checking or savings account also. So when they do start a job, they've got, I can't tell you, Carl, it's driving me crazy. I'm like, okay, do we have a checking or savings account? And they're like, oh no, I use Cash App. Okay. So we make sure they've got that checking and savings account, and then we develop a personal budget for them. Well, a lot of times we're using the monopoly money, the incentive money that we have as their personal budget to help them learn how to manage that. But when they really go out in the workforce and they start making this awesome money, more money than me, we're going into these manufacturing organizations, I'm like, this is so not even fair, right? But he was making so much money. I was like, come on back, we're gonna work on your budget. And so we developed a new budget, so that's there for, that continued advocacy and support, those resources that might be needed. And sometimes they kind of fall down, like life hit them hard. Guess what? We're here. Let's do it. Pick it up. Let's go. You got to get back up and keep moving. And we've also been there for that as well. So yeah, that's kind of how it looks. We do the classes, and we have our curriculum that we go through, and then they have to meet me for their mentoring sessions. They have graduation and then phase 2. And then after a year, it's so sad for me, but they're ready to just not even have to talk to me anymore. So I'm like, I don't know how I'll ever be a mother because this is terrible. Like I want to, So yeah.
I like the point you made about the money they're making, because that's a good positive thing to let people understand. If you go into a situation with the appropriate skills, the appropriate training, and the appropriate attitude, there are jobs, even beginner level jobs, starting level jobs in this community that pay 13, 14, 15, 16, $17 an hour. And in a lot of cases, that's more money than some people have ever seen in a payday, and they didn't know they could do that. So just that encouragement and learning that if you stick with this, here is what can happen. And that's just your starting level. And once you've worked that job for 10, 15, 20 years, imagine what the future could hold for you. So just giving them that opportunity to know that, because as I said, so many kids don't really understand when you start talking about hourly wages and benefits and all of the things that go along with having a job.
Yes, they don't. And it truly has been surprising for me. I mean, I won't lie to you. I'll show them, this is what a W-2 form looks like, and you forget that you didn't know these things when you first started out.
Right.
Like next week, we're going to start covering how to appropriately fill out a job application. And it's so funny because like they'll say, I'll have, reason for leaving on there, and they'll say something and I'm like, never in 1,000 years ever put that as a reason for leaving. This is why we do this, and there are things I just don't know. And it's just, honestly, it continually surprises me and reminds me that, there's just a little bit of guidance can go a really long way. And all they need is just a little bit of support. And I always tell them this, my job is not to tell them what to do. My job is to give them all the information that they need, all the resources and support that they need to make the best decision for themselves. And that goes back into them thinking for themselves. They'll even say, Miss Sunny, what would you do? I'm not telling you that. That's not fair to you. That's not my job. Yes, I may have an opinion, but I'll never tell you what that is. Because if you do decide to do something, and it may turn out to be something that seems like a mistake, it's not. You've learned from it and you've grown from it. And it was really there, on purpose, whether you realized it or not. And so, yeah, there's so much that we take for granted. This generation if you really think about it, they have experienced a lot of things that, all of our generations have experienced different things. And I know millennials talk wah all the time about why we're all messed up. That's my generation, but generation coming up, really, they have gone through a lot. And I think that we have forgotten that they do just need some, a pat on the back, we're not going to call them out. We're going to call them up. We're not going to yell at them. We're going to have a conversation with them. If we want them to emulate us and we want them to be, the best they can be, we've got to make sure that we're doing that and showing them that, our actions speak so much louder than our words or a curriculum that I have. I've got to be sure I'm on time. We talk about time management. I struggle with time management. Oh my goodness. It's like such a struggle for me. And, I'm very open with them about that. But, and I tell them I've continually have to work on time management, but this is something that I have to do. I have got to be on time. I can't just say, oh, I have ADHD. I can't. Oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You know, implement these coping resources, implement these ideas. Let me help you figure this out. But you can. Just because somebody says you have something and you do doesn't mean you can't do certain things. It just means it might take more effort on your part. And I want them to know they're capable. I want them to know that the sky really is the limit. And there are realities that we have to acknowledge and we have to face. But doesn't mean they're impossible. You just have to find where your gifting is, step into that, and use it to the best of your ability, and you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay.
Tell me about the toward the end of the program and helping them get those job placements and finding those right opportunities. I know you connect them with the Career Center there in Anniston, and that's a great resource for finding job opportunities. But talk about that. You don't just at the end of their term, you don't just turn them loose. You guys do help them find placement and put them in a position with the right people to get some of those job opportunities.
Yes, that's a great question, Carl. So we could not operate without our Career Center. I actually have my case manager, Thelma. She's phenomenal. And without her, I could not do what I do. She's not just a resource, she's an integral part of what we do here. And so just yesterday, she actually came and she talked to the students about the different resources WIOA has that really is going to help to aid them in the outcome of this program. So, and not just the outcome, even in the middle of it. So work-based learning opportunities, I work with Thelma to place them with work-based learning opportunities. And then of course we talk about the ITAs. So many of our students come here, they have these, they start discovering this potential that they have. And then they're like, oh, I want to go to college and I've never considered it before, but I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. Well, the beauty of the ITA, the individualized training account, is that there are funds available that will pay for them to get that. So we had a student last year. She had no idea what she wanted to do when she first came to us, and she discovered that she wanted to start with CNA as her first step and then become an RN. So she didn't know how she was going to pay for it. That's where the ITA came in. So she didn't have to pay for anything. The certain things that the ITA couldn't cover, like the certification exam, our funds, our grant funds from WIOA actually paid for her because her certification test was $300. So, we were able to step in and take care of that for her. But that is, a prime example. Now she's working, able to stand on her own 2 feet. And guess what? We're helping her go back to school for RN, which, we can continue to help her with. So Miss, Thelma is incredibly helpful with those. She's very knowledgeable in those areas. That's her expertise, her field. So we've got the ITA. We also have the on-the-job training. So if they're like, I don't want to go to college, I just want to go directly in the workforce, OJT, let's do it, so we're going to place them and, I want to work here. I want to do this. Thelma gets the contract going. Marius gets the contract going at the Career Center. And guess what? They're working on the job training. They're learning and they're growing and they're developing their skills with on the job training. And so those are some ways that we do that. Work-based learning can sometimes come after. It depends on how their pace is. I don't try to push. So if at the end of it, if their next step is going into an internship and utilizing the work-based learning, then that's great. But we always love it if they're going into an ITA or on the job training, because that means that they have really found their niche. They've found their target. This is what they're doing. And that, there's some more solid next steps. But if it's just work-based learning, that's great, because that means that they're continuing to pursue an actual, plan of action, and they're learning on the job, even if it's just an internship for a few, like 360 days. And so of course we're still following them and with them. And then a lot of times they end up going to do OJT or, getting the ITA. So it's just a beautiful marriage between, what we do and of course what the Career Center can do. And then of course, we've got great board members here at United Way who've been so supportive of what we do, and they're great resources for our community. For us, we've got Dr. Freya, RMC. Well, we've got a lot of students that are interested in the health field, and we can say, hey, can you direct us in the right place for this student? And they do. So, again, on both sides, we're just so blessed and so thankful to have support from so many different people and organizations and our partners that make all of this actually happen at the end of Workforce Connections.
So now, how do we get involved? How does a kid of 16 to 24 years old get involved in this program? What do they need to do if they're watching this, or someone is watching this and saying, I know somebody that's perfect for this program? What is their next step to get involved?
Yeah, so their next step is, we have a couple of ways. They can visit uweca.org. That's UWECA.org. That stands for United Way of East Central Alabama. When I say UWECA, UWECA, everybody's like, wait, what? So United Way of East Central Alabama, uweca.org, UWECA. We've got a Workforce Connections tab. You can click on that. There's an online interest form they can fill out. This does not sign them up for the program. This, a lot of times, like we had one yesterday, they fill out their interest form and they said, okay, I'm signed up. And we're like, wait, we wish it were that easy. It's not, but they're not signing up for the program. They're just letting me know they're interested. That kind of, cues me to give them a call, and we schedule an interview. The first one, it's really an informational session. They get to learn a little bit about us, and then we schedule an interview if they're interested. The interview is really for us to get to know them and be sure that they do qualify for Workforce Connections, because I'll have some in school youth that they may not have the low income barrier. So we'll wait until they graduate, because they've got another barrier, and then we enroll them the summer of the next fall, the next cohort. So they can do that. They can fill out an online interest form. But you know what? I really just love for people to call me. I really do. I'd rather just talk on the phone. But I did learn quickly that the youth are a little bit scared of the phone, which we work on as well.
They want a text. They'd rather have a text.
For the love of God, just call them.
Or Snapchat.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the funniest thing. I'll say, I'll be with them and I'll be like, well, did you call them? Did you call the employer? Did you call her? Whatever. And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do it right now. And they're like, right now? Yes. We're calling them right now. I'm right here, but you're talking. Okay. And so the interest form helps. The online interest form is a good way to get their interest without them having to be terrified on the phone. We work to that. So they can do that. They can also, of course, call us. My phone number here is 256-236-8229. My extension's 120. My associate, Alex Wilkerson's phenomenal. And so when I'm not here, which a lot of times I'm out doing classes, meeting with students, but he will actually be able to answer because it rolls right over to him. You can email me. That's scotton at uweca.org. So there are multiple ways. Really, let's just talk. There's no right or wrong way. We just want to get to know you, and we'll go from there. But those are some ways to start.
Awesome. Well, Sandy, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, and we'll remind everybody it is called Workforce Connections through the United Way of East Central Alabama, and it sounds like you guys have a great program going on there. We look forward to learning more and seeing how your results come out over the next couple of years.
Me too, Carl. I'm ready to see those. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you much. And folks, thank you for joining us as well for the East Alabama Works video podcast series. We'll see you next time.